What's up? I'm Lily. Revenge Crown brings you the stories that keep you hooked. If that sounds good, smash subscribe and let's go. My attorney, Diana Reeves, and two patrol deputies. Diana was carrying a briefcase in one hand and a folder of documents in the other. She was a real estate attorney who specialized in property disputes. An ID put her on retainer 3 months ago after my parents started making comments about my sister. Brittany deserving better. Miss Chambers, Sheriff Patterson said, approaching where I stood on the sidewalk. You reported an illegal lockout? That's correct, I said, gesturing to the house, my house where my parents and sister were visible through the front window. I returned from a business trip to find the locks changed and my belongings removed from the property. My mother opened the door, her face shifting from confidence to confusion. Kayla, what is this? Why did you bring the police? Sheriff Patterson, this is Patricia Chambers, my mother, I said calmly. She's currently trespassing on my property along with my father Donald and my sister Brittany. Trespassing? Mom's voice pitched high. This is absurd. We're family. Diana stepped forward, her heels clicking on the concrete walkway. Mrs. Chambers, I'm Diana Reeves, attorney at law. I represent Kayla Chambers, the sole legal owner of this property located at 3254 Oakmont Drive. Do you have any documentation showing you have legal right to occupy this residence or to change the locks? Dad appeared behind Mom. We don't need documentation. We're her parents. We lived in this house for 6 months last year when Kayla was traveling for work. We know she doesn't need all this space. That's not how property law works, Diana said, pulling out a document. This is the deed to 3254 Oakmont Drive. Recorded with the county on March 15, 2020, it shows Kayla Marie Chambers as the sole owner. There are no co-owners, no joint tenants. Just Kayla. She handed the document to Sheriff Patterson, who reviewed it carefully. Mr. and Mrs. Chambers, the sheriff said, this deed is clear. Your daughter owns this property. You cannot change the locks without her permission. That constitutes an illegal lockout under state law. My sister Brittany pushed past our parents. She was 28, recently divorced, with 2 kids who were currently at school. Kayla, stop being dramatic. Mom and Dad explain everything. You're barely ever here. I need a stable place for my kids. You can get an apartment. I own this house, I said, my voice level. I paid $285,000 for it 5 years ago. I've made 60 mortgage payments. I pay the property taxes, the insurance, and all utilities. You have no claim to it whatsoever. But family helps family, Brittany said, her voice taking on that whiny tone she'd perfected as a child. My kids need a yard, a good school district. This house is perfect for us. Diana pulled out another document. Miss Chambers, Brittany, did you sign a lease agreement with your sister? Pay any rent? Have any written permission to occupy this property? We had a verbal agreement, Mom interjected. Kayla said we could stay here last year when she was traveling. That created a precedent. A precedent for what? Diana asked. Temporary house visiting doesn't grant property rights? Mrs. Chambers, did Kayla give you permission to move your other daughter into the house permanently? Silence. I'll take that as a no, Diana said. She turned to me. Kayla, when did you last have access to your own home? 4 days ago, I said. I left on Monday for a work conference in Chicago. I returned this afternoon to find new locks and my parents' car in the driveway along with a moving truck. A moving truck? Sheriff Patterson looked at my parents. So this was planned? Dad's face reddened. Brittany needed help. The divorce left her with nothing. We were just trying to help our daughter. By stealing from your other daughter, Diana said flatly. Sheriff, I'd like to document what's been removed from the property. I have a complete inventory that Miss Chambers provided me 3 months ago when she suspected this might happen. Mom gasped. You planned this? You set us up? I protected myself, I corrected. After you started making comments about how Brittany needed this house more than me, I hired Diana and documented everything. Every piece of furniture I owned, every appliance, every personal item, all photographed and cataloged. Diana was already walking toward the house. I'll need to see inside. Sheriff, can you escort me? Wait, Brittany said desperately. We can work this out. Kayla, I'll pay you rent. We can split the mortgage. No, I said simply. You broke into my house and changed my locks. There's nothing to work out. Deputy Williams, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. Ma'am, we're going to need you and your family to exit the property. You can take your personal belongings that you brought today, but anything that belongs to Miss Chambers stays. We can't just leave, Mom protested. Brittany's furniture is in there. Her kids' beds. Their clothes. You moved all that in without my permission, I said. You can move it right back out, today, under police supervision. The next 2 hours were chaos. Diana documented everything with photos and video. My bedroom furniture gone, replaced with Brittany's. My home office converted to a kid's playroom. My living room rearranged with my parents' furniture mixed with mine. This is extensive, Diana said, typing notes on her tablet. They didn't just move in. They tried to erase you from your own home. My leather sectional sofa, the one I de-saved for months to buy, had been moved to the garage and covered with a tarp. My dining table was gone entirely. My artwork had been taken down and replaced with family photos that didn't include me. Where's my dining table? I asked my mother, who was crying on the front lawn. We sold it, she admitted. Brittany needed the money for her kids' school supplies. Diana's head snapped up. You sold your daughter's property without permission. That's theft. Sheriff, did you hear that? Sheriff Patterson had indeed heard it. He made a note in his report. How much did you sell it for? I asked. $400, Mom said miserably. It was just a table, Kayla. You can get another one. It was a custom walnut table worth $2,800, I said. And you had no right to sell it. Diana was already calculating. That's grand theft. In this state, anything over $1,000 is a felony. Dad's face went white. We didn't know it was worth that much. Ignorance isn't a defense, Diana said. You sold property that didn't belong to you. The value makes it a serious crime. Brittany started crying. This is insane. You're going to have Mom and Dad arrested over a table? Over theft, I corrected. The table, plus the illegal lockout, plus trespassing, plus whatever else they've taken or destroyed. Yes. A locksmith van pulled up. Diana had called them an hour ago. Let's get your locks changed again, she said to me. New keys that only you have. While the locksmith worked, my parents and Brittany packed up the belongings they'd moved in, Brittany's furniture. The kids' beds, boxes of clothes and toys. All of it loaded back onto the moving truck they'd rented. Where are we supposed to go? Brittany asked. I don't have anywhere else. That's not Kayla's problem, Diana said. You should have thought about that before breaking into her house. Mom tried one more appeal. Kayla, please. Think about your nephews. They need stability, a good home. You have that here. Can't you share? I could have shared, I said. If you'd asked, if you'd been honest. If you'd respected my property and my boundaries. Instead, you changed my locks and tried to steal my house. So no, I can't share. Sheriff Patterson handed me a document. This is your copy of the incident report. Case number 202-54891. Your attorney will need this for any civil action you decide to pursue. We'll be filing immediately, Diana confirmed. Illegal lockout carries statutory damages of up to $5,000. The theft of the dining table is $2,800 replacement value. Emotional distress, cost of legal representation, changing locks twice, storage for Miss Chambers while this was resolved, we're looking at approximately $15,000 in damages. Minimum. We don't have that kind of money, Dad said, looking defeated. Then you'll make payments, Diana said. Or face wage garnishment. Your choice, by 6 p.m. My house was empty of their belongings. The moving truck drove away with Brittany sobbing in the passenger seat. My parents stood in the driveway looking shell-shocked. You're really doing this, Mom said. It wasn't a question. You really broke into my house, I replied. Actions have consequences. They left. I stood in my house with Diana and the sheriff documenting the final details. I'll have the demand letter ready by Monday, Diana said. They'll have 14 days to respond before we file suit. Thank you, I said. For everything. That's what you pay me for, she said with a slight smile. Though I have to say, your documentation was exceptional. The inventory list, the photos, the timeline of their comments about Brittany deserving the house, it made this case ironclad. After everyone left, I walked through my house alone. The new locks felt solid and secure. My sectional was back in the living room, though dusty from the garage. My artwork was back on the walls. My bedroom furniture was being delivered tomorrow. Diana had arranged for rental furniture until then. But the dining table was gone. My home office had paint damage from where they'd hung shelves. The guest bathroom had a crack in the mirror from someone's carelessness during the move. I documented everything with photos for the lawsuit. Over the next week, my phone exploded with messages from family members. Aunts and uncles telling me I was cruel. Cousins saying I should forgive them. Even my grandmother called to say I was breaking the family apart. I blocked most of them. The few I responded to got the same message. They broke into my house and tried to steal it. If you think that's acceptable, we have nothing to discuss. Diana's demand letter went out on Monday. $17,450 in damages. $5,000 for illegal lockout. $2,800 for the stolen table. $3,200 for property damage. $2,450 for Diana's fees. $4,000 for emotional distress. My parents' response came from a budget attorney who tried to argue that family disputes should be handled privately, not through the courts. Diana's response was surgical. She attached the police report, the photos of the changed locks, my mother's admission about selling the table, and testimony from the sheriff about their attempted permanent occupancy. The case was airtight. 2 weeks later, we were in mediation. My parents looked older, smaller somehow. Brittany wasn't there. She'd moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with help from my grandmother. The mediator, a retired judge named Harold Stevens, reviewed the evidence. Mr. and Mrs. Chambers, you understand you have virtually no defense here? Your daughter has documented everything. We were trying to help family, Mom said weakly. By committing multiple crimes, Judge Stevens said. Illegal lockout, theft, criminal trespass, destruction of property, Miss Chambers could have pressed criminal charges. She's being generous by keeping this civil. Generous, Dad muttered bitterly. Yes, generous, Judge Stevens said firmly. If this were criminal, you'd be looking at potential jail time for the felony theft. As it stands, you're looking at a payment plan for civil damages. After 6 hours of mediation, we reached a settlement. My parents would pay $16,000 over 4 years at $333 per month. They'd sign a statement acknowledging the theft and illegal lockout. They'd agree to a restraining order prohibiting them from coming within 500 feet of my property. And they acknowledge in writing that I was the sole owner of 3254 Oakmont Drive with no obligation to provide housing to any family member. My father signed with shaking hands. My mother cried through the entire process. I hope you're satisfied, Dad said as we left the mediator's office. You've destroyed your family over a house. I protected my property from people who tried to steal it, I said. Even if those people are family. The first payment arrived 32 days later, $333.00, then the second, then the third. I used the money to replace my dining table. Custom walnut, just like the original. It cost $3,100, more than the stolen one. I paid the difference gladly. Brittany tried reaching out 6 months later. A long email about how hard things were, how her kids asked about me, how she'd made a mistake listening to our parents. I read it once and deleted it. I didn't respond. My grandmother called on my birthday. Kayla, don't you think 4 years of payments is enough punishment? Can't you forgive them and move on? Grandma, they broke into my house and tried to steal it, I said. They sold my property without permission. They erased me from my own home. 4 years of payments isn't punishment. It's restitution for actual damages they caused. But they're family. Family doesn't commit felonies against each other, I said. And if they do, family faces consequences just like anyone else would. She didn't call back. A year after the lockout, I was promoted at work, senior consultant with a significant raise. I used the bonus to pay off a chunk of my mortgage early. I hosted a housewarming party for my friends and coworkers. People who supported me through the legal battle. People who understood that protecting yourself isn't selfish, even when it's from family. My colleague Marcus asked if I ever regretted how things went down. Do you wish you'd handled it differently? Maybe tried to work something out? I looked around my living room. My sectional, my artwork, my custom dining table. My house with locks only I controlled, not for a single second, I said. They tried to steal my home. I showed them exactly why that was a mistake. 2 years after the incident, I refinanced my mortgage at a better rate. The payment dropped by $200 a month. I used the savings to start a fund for property rights, education helping people understand tenant laws, property ownership, and how to protect themselves from family members who overstep. The payments from my parents continued, month after month. $333.00 like clockwork. Each one a reminder that property rights matter, that family doesn't excuse theft, that standing up for yourself isn't cruel, it's necessary. 3 years in, my mother sent a letter through her attorney. She wanted to know if early payment would end the restraining order. She wanted to see me, to apologize properly, to try to rebuild. I discussed it with Diana. What do you want to do? She asked. I want them to finish the payment plan, I said. When they've paid every dollar they owe, we can talk about the restraining order. Not before. The answer went back through attorneys. My mother didn't write again. 4 years and 2 months after that day with the silver locks, the final payment cleared. $16,000 paid in full. My parents had met every payment deadline. Never late, never short. Diana called to congratulate me. Case closed, payment satisfied. You can lift the restraining order now if you want. I'll think about it, I said. I thought about it for 6 months. Then I sent a letter through Diana to my parents. Not to reconcile, not to forgive, just to acknowledge. The payment plan has been satisfied. The debt is settled. That doesn't erase what happened, but it closes this chapter. If you want to rebuild a relationship, it will be on my terms, at my pace, with clear boundaries. You don't get to decide you've suffered enough and skip to forgiveness. That's not how this works. I never got a response. Maybe they were too proud. Maybe they were still angry. Maybe they finally understood they couldn't manipulate their way back into my life. I didn't care. I had my house, my peace, my boundaries, and absolutely no regrets. They thought they could change my locks and take what I'd worked for. Instead, they met my real estate lawyer and learned exactly what property rights mean. And I slept perfectly every single night in my house with my locks, on my terms.